It's funny how I keep falling into this personal trend of making reviews of games I was originally not planning to review. Mostly on the virtue that they left me wanting to say a lot of things about them, and I think that's the mark of a good game, even if sometimes I don't say too many good things about them. Bad Blood may be the best example of this right now. It's technically a 4-hour long DLC campaign for the main Watchdogs game, if you ignore the side content, but it uses its time so wisely and in so many good ways that it made me wish this was the main campaign. And that's because Bad Blood uses the main premise of Chicago and its police state as the core of the conflict, instead of just using it as a backdrop for yet another crime drama GTA style kind of revenge story. In Bad Blood, we play as T-Bone, an infamous hacker and one of the main characters of the main story. It's been a year since the event of the main campaign, and he's trying to erase all of his tracks from CTOS so he can finally skip town and be free, because Bloom, the company that created CTOS and his former employers, have been hunting him down for years. But all of this changes when Tobias, his friend and former co-worker, also gets targeted by hired guns. So now it's up to T-Bone to make sure that they are taken out of the CTOS database so they no longer have to fight for their lives, while also seeking redemption for causing a blackout that killed 11 people and messing up Tobias' life. And that is freaking awesome! As much as I enjoyed the main campaign, it came short of its full potential, mostly because the story was just a GTA-style crime drama. Bad Blood, by contrast, is a redemption story, and one that actually uses the hacking and the high-tech police state to its full potential. Gameplay-wise, everything I said in the review of the main game applies here. The major change, however, is this time around stealth and hacking is far more encouraged, and the level design really makes it shine. Take the footage mission, for instance. You start with a typical enemy hideout, dealing with the guards however you like. Then, once inside the building, you have to hack and dodge out of the way through a number of detection lasers, even using T-Bone's only drone to reach places you cannot. Then, after another obstacle course and some more hacking, you have to make your way out, either by killing the guards or silently taking them down. And then finally outside, you have to evade an entire group of gunmen by using your guns and your gadgets, then get out of the search zone. And that is great! The rest of the game loves doing this with each mission. Every one of them has this little crescendo effect going on, where you hack your way through the plot with either stealth or combat. Except this time around, the gunfights feel like they come out more naturally, while also giving you plenty of ways to maintain stealth through hacking with very little arbitrary rules, but also fleshing out some of the more underutilized mechanics of the core game. And then there is the side content. Remember how the base game was all about fighting crime but was ultimately the same random event repeated infinitely? Now the crime fighting in the DLC is done via strip sweep missions. Little challenges to take down criminals or driving challenges that may sound like more of the same, except this time around they come with extra optional objectives. And it even has its own flavor text with a police detective acting as your Commissioner Gordon while you fight the crime as Redneck Batman. It's a small thing, but it gives it a little extra flavor, for the most part at least. The only grainy part about them is that you have to do a lot of repeats for both upgrades and for 100% completion, which doesn't sound like much until you realize you have to do this up to 60 times for all 3 major gangs combined, and that's before getting into the 29 driving contracts. Thankfully, you only need to do a few of those in order to get some much needed upgrades for your drone and yourself, but for the full completion, it can wear out its welcome pretty fast, even with the promise of new outfits for T-Bone. Which will be bad if I care about 100% completion, but since I don't, those side missions serve their purpose. They even let me get a taser that turns my drone into an overpowered stealth weapon of mass destruction. You can take down armies full of guards if you are fast enough, and they will count as a proper pacifist non-lethal takedown, and that makes for some amazing pacifist runs. What is not amazing is the download missions though. You have to stay close to the computers to download the files while hordes of enemies fire at you, which wouldn't be too bad except you're at the mercy of the enemies firing at you, and even if you decide to fire back at them, well, they are infinitely spawning, so it's more of an annoying thing to do because eventually they're gonna take you down. but at least it's a testament of how good this DLC is when only one of the side missions really feels like a chore to play. It also helps that T-Bone is a far more interesting protagonist than Aiden. His takedowns are far more brutal, he has a wrench instead of the police baton with a taser to boot, and he has his own baggage to deal with. T-Bone's tale is one of redemption. He feels great guilt for what he did in the past and how it keeps affecting his only friend left in Chicago. By protecting Tobias, he is achieving redemption, and both men grow and develop as their adventure goes on. You don't get to fight an army of hired guns while hiding from the very system you helped create without becoming Fire Force friends. There is a lot of heart and personality in this story. The only unfortunate thing is I don't think anyone will ever touch this DLC. Not with Watchdogs now having a third entry and improving its gameplay with each passing sequel, making this first game a lot more dated and clunky by comparison. But that is just one more unfortunate side effect of being sabotaged by Ubisoft's horribly botched marketing. Either way, Bad Blood does a great job in expanding the main story, and it is a great glimpse into the systems and improvements that led to the creation of Watch Dogs 2, which I can hardly wait to get back into after playing it for a few hours. On its own, it has plenty of merits and it did show exactly what could have been if they had decided for this instead of a safe and by-the-numbers revenge story. This is why I am giving Bad Blood a very decent 8 out of 10. Despite being a pretty short DLC for an open world game, it has plenty of substance to stand on its own, and it gave me a good reason to revisit the game despite having finished the main campaign. It also is a nice piece of gaming history, as it is a cautionary tale on how poorly managed marketing can ruin an otherwise good game's perception, and forever bury it in incomplete, and sometimes undeserved, infamy.